morning. I wonder who's going to be the first to say good morning. Good morning, LinkedIn Live. Good morning, people off of YouTube. Good morning, Lisa Ardley-Price. How you doing?
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone. Yeah, good morning. If you're watching us live, please do say good morning in the chat. I know it's a bank holiday weekend, actually. So I was starting to think, I wonder if most people are going to be like offline and, you know, getting ready to kind of just enjoy their...
maybe they're listening to us while they pack for a lovely weekend away. Who knows? Exactly.
Maybe they're getting ready. I know it's carnival weekend for those carnival girlies and the boys and the thems and the theys. I know it's carnival weekend. Have you ever been to carnival, Lisa?
Yeah, I have. Well, I used to live around that part of London. A couple of times to carnival, and just the energy is off the charts.
Yeah. I went once. Once I was like, okay, this is carnival. This is enough for me. I'm gonna,
yeah. But I experience it.
Yeah. But I will say, I have been invited to a reggae brunch this weekend. I want to say, I feel like it's maybe today. So I'm not sure I'm going to make that. For a friend's birthday. But good morning if you're listening. Let us know what you're doing this bank holiday weekend, because we'd love to hear about it. I've got with me this morning the incredible Lisa Ardley-Price, who, Lisa, you're now part of a very, very small club of people that have been on here twice. It literally doesn't even it fits onto one hand.
Oh, wow.
Yes. There's not many people that have been on twice. So welcome. That must mean that I know that you've got a lot of value to add, right?
A lot to say.
So I've got Lisa Ardley-Price with me, who in her day job is Managing Legal Counsel at Natwest. What does that mean for anybody that doesn't know that terminology, Lisa? Just really briefly, what does that mean, Managing Legal Counsel?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, we have a big legal function at Natwest, as you can imagine. It's a bit like working in a law firm. I've been with the bank for 10 years now. My role as Managing Legal Counsel really means that I'm a legal counsel at a management level, so I do have direct reports. I work on quite strategically important work and with senior stakeholders, but I have an area of subject matter expertise, and that's predominantly trade and supply chain finance. So although I can advise on a broader range of banking products, that's where my focus goes. So you will occasionally see me put a bit of trade and supply chain finance stuff on LinkedIn. Be like, that's a bit out there compared to all the usual DEI content and leadership stuff, but you know, that out there as well sometimes.
Yeah, I love that. So basically, for anybody that hasn't realized, Lisa has a big day job, right? It's a big day job. Good morning to Junior Berman, Junior Beeman. Good morning. And I always have to thank Lisa for the introduction to Junior, who is like a ray of sunshine, Junior, in my life. Good morning, my favorite girlies. Happy Friday, slay. Amazing. Junior, I hope you've had a good weekend. Junior, what are you doing at the weekend? Are you going to carnival? That's the question I have for you. I'm interested to see who's going to carnival. I had a meeting with a client this week, and we talked about potentially doing a follow-up meeting on Tuesday, and she was like, absolutely not, because I'm going to carnival and my feet are going to be in bits. So, so that's that. And then Lisa, apart from obviously being Managing Legal Counsel at NatWest, Lisa is also the global chair of the Gender Network at NatWest, the biggest network in NatWest, and probably at 9,000 members. I want to say it's probably one of the biggest networks, certainly in the country, that's organized at that level, right? Yeah, it's pretty big.
Perhaps it is. I think Junior's on here, and he's one of our co-chairs of MCN, and I think they're coming quickly up behind us in terms of the numbers. There's no competition here.
Well, do you know, I was just about to say, it's always good to have some healthy competition.
You know what? Actually, one thing I will say about the way we work together at NatWest, and why Junior and I are so close. He used to be chair of the Rainbow Network. He's now moved into leading our multicultural network. And we, as a group of ELNs, we work together really, really closely. And that's so important. I'm sure we'll come to that later when we talk about, what it means to find balance as a network chair. We have regular catch-ups basis. We have Teams chats and we talk in between and we share ideas and we find opportunities to collaborate, because ultimately everyone's working towards the same North Star, which is to create a more inclusive workplace for everybody.
Absolutely.
He is packing his suitcase.
Yes.
So people would be listening while they were packing their suitcases.
Yeah. So this absolutely, this is the perfect. So if you know anybody that's going on holiday, tag them. This is the perfect conversation to ease people actually into their holidays, because we're talking about finding balance. So Junior, I'm actually glad to hear that you're going on holiday, because when I read your weekly roundups, I'm tired just reading it. So I'm glad to hear.
It's so fun as well.
I know.
I think Junior brings the fun.
Yeah, Junior brings the fun.
Yeah, do you see over 6,000 in MCS?
Watch your backs, Gender Network. It's really interesting. I love it, the healthy competition. And also growth for a network is a really good sign, because it's almost a bit like, one of the other measures that I love is a net promoter score. But a growing network is such a great sign, as in, if, when people join the organization, they see a network and they're like, oh, that looks great, or that looks worthwhile in terms of, investing some of my time and attention. I want to join it. That's a good sign, right? So growing network, or network where people have been in the firm for a while and people recommend it to their colleagues, is perfect, right?
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, obviously organizations are changing all the time and people are coming in and out. And I think just to stay at a steady number is an achievement in and of itself. And I think we shouldn't get too attached to membership numbers as a metric, because there are other ways to measure the impact of the networks. We define member by number of subscribers to our newsletter, but that doesn't mean that there aren't thousands of other colleagues that are regularly attending our events, and that we are them. So actually, I mean, we're an organization of 60,000 colleagues, and I would argue, we reach every one of them in some way, shape or form in terms of our content, whether that's articles on the intranet, whether it's things that we put on our engage pages, which is a kind of Facebook for work type thing, whether it's, through the events and the initiatives that we run, we are touching each one of those 60,000 colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Yeah, really interesting conversation there, just about the metrics and the membership numbers. Good morning, Hardev. How are you doing? Dev, another employee network leader in the chat. So obviously, as Lisa, as you said, Junior looks after your Natwest Multicultural Network, and Hardev looks after Mia's Men, so men's network as well. So we've got some of the big guns joining us in the chat.
Hardev presentation at the ERG Leader Summit, as I recall.
Yeah, true. Oh my gosh, yeah, Hardev, yeah. It absolutely incredible. Hardev, what are you doing for the bank holiday? That's what the question is in the chat. What are you doing for this bank holiday? And then Lisa, so obviously when you're not doing your day job and not managing the network, you do a lot of things outside, in terms of there are lots of organizations outside that you're involved in, particularly in the third sector as well, I want to say, right? Which is interesting.
So a couple of years ago, I thought it would be a good idea to seek out a trustee role, just because I wasn't.
Why not?
Exactly. No, but I think it's a combination of things. One, I wanted more board experience outside of my organization. I also wanted to contribute, to community, to society, and take some of my skills and take them to the third sector and find opportunities to do that. So I ended up getting not just one but two trustee roles. But for me, it's really important that if you're going to give your time back to something, it has to be something that you really strongly kind of believe in. It resonates with you. So both of those charities that I am a trustee for, both Be Kind Movement and Natwest, both have a real kind of wellness focus, which is what we're going to be talking about today. On mental health, supporting generations, and they are intergenerational. Be Kind Movement's mainly focused on young people and school children, and helping them to build resilience and emotional intelligence, and navigate the world around us, and fundamentally have kindness towards themselves first and foremost, and then for others. But that obviously has a ripple effect. They go out into the world. It impacts their teachers, it impacts their parents, and they take that as they kind of move through their lives into leadership roles. They come into the working place as well. Natwest is about helping to support people in community, to find community through movement and dance.
Yeah, that's great. That's absolutely great. There's a couple of things that you said there. First of all, your desire to get involved in, third sector, more sort of like charitable and, benefiting society and those kind of making a difference things. It kind of totally resonates. And I know for a lot of employee network leaders, they are drawn to those sorts of things. That's why they get involved in employee networks, right? For a lot of them anyway. But also, there's something about, you said about wanting to get more board experience, and it's nothing like getting a sort of like a volunteer trustee role to help with that board experience. You really do pick up some really good skills, and I think that then combined with kind of like running a network and running a committee, they're great skills in terms of like leadership development, in terms of whether or not you want to lean into kind of more the inclusion and people space or just lean into your profession. Absolutely brilliant skills. Hardev, very well. Your network has been nominated, amazing, as a finalist in the IWFM Awards. Well, massive congratulations, Hardev. Incredibly well deserved. And this bank holiday, some family time and art sessions at a care home. See, exactly what we were saying. That desire to kind of like make a difference in the world, right? And we were talking about that before we went live as well. And Hardev and the art thing as well. Maybe that will come into the conversations because we know that Hardev does art, right, in his spare time. That's kind of part of, I guess, for Hardev, that's part of, kind of like unleashing your creativity and finding some balance, right, and pouring back into yourself. Lisa, you use the term pouring into yourself, as we were kind of like getting ready to go live. So let's get into this conversation. I want to, before we get into like the finding balance thing, and I know we were talking about this before we went on. So you in Natwest, you have global networks, and the gender network is global. This is often a question I get asked about how to structure networks, and for such a large network, you're sort of like 9,000, and obviously the multicultural network is 6,000. How is it actually organized at a practical level? And are there things that are done only locally or regionally, or is there anything that's done globally? So just maybe explain to people what that looks like in terms of when it works well, and maybe some of the challenges as well of that.
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I'll speak to the gender network because that's obviously the one that I lead, and they're different. We've got 8 employee-led networks at Natwest, and all of them are slightly different sizes and slightly different ages in terms of how long they've been in existence. The Rainbow Network, for example, just celebrated their 20th anniversary this year. We've got our 20th anniversary, so there's big celebrations next year. So I think there are also newer ones. So we've got like a Sustainable Futures Network and our Aspire Network. I don't know how many years that's been running for, but it's one of the newer networks that we have. So, we're all about kind of helping them as well to grow and evolve and build their engagement across the organisation. We work together, as I mentioned earlier. But we are probably one of the more kind of structured in terms of how we're set up as a gender network. Now, kind of how we do it isn't necessarily the right way. It's not the wrong way. There's no one way you've got to find what works for you. But I think, what we're doing currently seems to be serving us, but we are always looking at ways to change. But currently we have 10 different regions, 8 different strands. We're always bringing in new strands. So strands, so regions is quite self-explanatory. It's geographic regions. So we've got everything from India, APAC, to various different sub-regions within the UK. So Scotland, the Northeast, the Southeast, London, etc. But then we've got strands, which are kind of specialist groups to target particular demographics or business areas. So we've got women in tech, for example, because we know getting women into tech roles is very challenging. Supporting women in tech is hard. So they're there to specifically support women in tech. We've got a wealth gender network. We've got a women in Natwest markets. We've recently taken on a new strand, which is women in data. That's what I mean. We're always constantly evolving ways to do things and where the needs are. So the key thing in all of that is that we're listening. We're listening to our employees. We are an employee-led network after all. We are the voice of our colleagues. And so, we want to hear what they need. So what are we saying? What are you looking for? What groups do And then in terms of what the responsibilities are, obviously we create a global strategy within our global leadership team. We've got various different subcommittees. So we have things like ops and comms and marketing that are the really practical things that we need in order to grow and scale and run as a network, say as an organisation, because it's a bit like running a mini organisation inside an organisation. But then we also have initiatives and partnerships. We have a career development limb. And they are responsible for that at global scale, but then that cascades down into all of the regions and the strands. So we share what we're after at a global scale, but they inform that too. There is a feedback loop. So we go through our retros and our strategy setting, and we bring in those voices. So we have a member survey that goes out to all of our members. We have sessions with all of our regions and strands committees to hear kind of what's working, what's not working for them, and how we need to change. And then together, in a very kind of co-creative way, we come up with what the strategy is going to be for the following year.
Okay.
And we also, it's really important that we're making sure that they're getting autonomy to drive the initiatives that they want to drive and that are important to them. So again, whether that's in your particular region, because what Scotland needs is going to be different to what London needs, depending on who is in those regions and what the issues and challenges are locally. Similarly, what Women in Tech need is going to look different to what the Wealth Agenda Network needs. So we have autonomy to drive their own agendas, but also kind of making sure that there's always that link back to the global strategy.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you for that explanation. And obviously, MCN, which is coming behind you. I say coming behind you, coming fast up your ear, right? Yeah, moving forward.
So 20 years next year for MCN as well. So definitely coming with us, like big celebrations next year.
For sure. And always a new outfit is always needed, right, for a celebration like that. So. Absolutely. 20 years for those networks. I mean, those are big numbers though. And this is why, this is one of the reasons that I'm often telling people about Natwest, just in terms of, I look at it as an organization that the words that I use are, Natwest takes its network seriously. Like those are the words that I use. And I guess for me, when I look at Natwest, almost similar to the way that Xerox is with its networks, like your networks are just such a core part of how you run, right, of the organization. 20 years, like that's a long time. So it's amazing. And thank you for just breaking it down there in terms of how things work. So it sounds like the strands are almost, as you said, more needs led, or I guess more priority focused, in terms of what does this organization need now. And I guess the needs, then the strands potentially work across the regions, right, in this almost like matrix type organization. We live a matrix.
One of the things that we noticed last year was that because of the way we're structured, and it is a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, right, with all those different strands and regional committees, there were a few silos. Like there were people over here doing something, people over here doing something else. And for example, you get a few different groups that were all looking at doing events around menstrual health, for example.
Right.
Why aren't we just like joining up a bit better? So one of the things that we have done this year to kind of pivot our operating rhythm slightly is to make sure that we have a monthly meeting for everyone. So it is a pan-network town hall where we get all of the committee leads from all of those different regions and strands together with our global leadership team to talk about kind of what they're doing, to share the successes, to share the challenges, to problem solve together, to find those opportunities to collaborate and drive more impact together rather than separately. And we found that's been really instrumental in producing more synchronicity across the network, actually, and getting people pulling in the same direction.
Absolutely.
And then engagement, because if you're able to kind of work together on one particular initiative or all get behind one thing, it's less confusing to your colleagues as well, because especially you can imagine with 8 different employee-led networks, and then there's lots of other stuff outside of that as well. So we have wellbeing advocates and inclusion advocates, like business areas will have their own initiatives as well. And I do think a lot of colleagues that are sitting there going, I just don't know where to start. Like, how do I get involved in it? Sometimes there's a risk of, well, I'm just going to disengage. I'm going to keep my head, I'm going to do my work, because all of this just feels like too much. So one of the challenges is hitting that sweet spot where it's like, less is more. Let's work together, come up with some really initiatives and events that are going to get everyone involved, rather than just feeling a little bit at times like you're throwing paint at the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is because otherwise it can all just start to feel like noise, can't it? And this is what I feel, actually, this is where something like AI or other tech tools could actually be used to help. So I was running a workshop a couple of weeks ago where I did like a low tech version for this organization where we literally had the 6 networks and all of the leads in the room. And we created effectively almost like what was, the calendar of all of the initiatives and the focus areas that everybody was doing, all in one place that everybody could see. And we could see which policies is that network looking at, which awareness days, what training program. I mean, you could see it all there on one page. But especially when your organization's larger, that's where something like AI or some other sort of like tech tool or just an MS form, like let's not be overly technical, could probably help with that, like read across into the different kind of strength, because it is a lot of data. When you're an organization of your size, it's a lot of data. So there is something about, can we potentially use technology to help to draw out kind of like where some of those overlaps are. Just a thought.
It's such a good point. And I mean, one thing that we've been playing around with is an events tracker. We have ELN calendar on our. So if people are interested in ELN events, they can go onto the calendar. They can see what's coming up in the month ahead. But we've also kind of had a day together earlier this year where we shared ideas, exchanged thoughts on what we're all going after, so that we can drive that synchronicity across all of the employee-led network. So it's really important that you're continuously having those conversations. But you're right about the policy, actually, because we've been within the gender network looking at things around flexible working and reduced hours and job sharing, because that's to our members. But that's also relevant to lots of other employee-led networks too, right? It will be relevant to the Enable network. They'll be interested in the disability perspective. It will be relevant for our colleagues in Rainbow who are adopting. It will be relevant, just across the board. People that are doing things outside of their day jobs, they've got other interests, hobbies. Maybe they're working in the third sector, having trustee roles, and they want more flexibility. So it's not something that's unique to us. So I think finding those tools, as you say, whether it's technology, to really draw out that intersectionality and those opportunities to connect, collaborate, and get behind something together.
Absolutely, definitely, because it all links into this conversation is around finding balance, and part of that is working smarter and working together, right? So any tools that organizations can use, whether it's as low tech as you get people in a room and you all talk and you go through your calendar and your priorities, or it's all in a spreadsheet or an MS form or whatever, and you get some tech that or just Copilot like looks for it, right? Junior's put here a good example is World Suicide Prevention Day next month, where our wellbeing team are running events. So rather than duplicate, we signpost and link the topic to our members and their specific needs. So great example, as in like, if that's, say, for example, that was something that maybe came out of, say, like a member survey or something, maybe for one ELN, as you call them in Natwest, but maybe for another. And then so when one ELN says, well, we're doing such and such, the other one could be like, oh, we know that that's a potential area of interest for us as well, right? So always looking for what's the read across, what are the opportunities to collaborate. I want to get into how you became chair, because there is this saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person, which is a crazy saying, but there is logic to it, right? Did you volunteer or were you voluntold? I've got this term.
We actually. I mean, we treat our leadership roles within all of the employee-led networks very, very seriously. So the process, you have to apply just like you would for any other job, and there's an interview. So I very much volunteered, or I put my hat in the ring. But it was interesting. I mean, I suppose I started really getting involved in employee-led networks during the pandemic. I'd always been involved on the kind of periphery with things like the network and also an Enable network. I did quite a lot of ambassadoring for them, but I hadn't got, I suppose the day job had got in the way a bit, gone out on a couple of mat leaves. I came back from my second mat leave. It was mid-pandemic, and I'd had a real moment where I was like, look, I'm craving connection, community with others, because we're in the pandemic and we're not seeing people face to face. But also coming back now, I really want to do more than just the day job. I want to contribute more towards the workplace, and drive more change. And so that led me to getting more heavily involved in the networks and seeking out roles. So initially, there was a rollout of a program of Lean In Circles. So that was a new initiative for us. They were looking for facilitators. I was like, I don't really know what that means, but I'll get involved. Why not? Sounds like a good opportunity. And ticks all those boxes of finding community connection and driving change. And so I was then leading a Lean In Circle. So it's just a gathering of colleagues from all different areas of the bank, all genders, although it tends to predominantly attract women, but it is for all genders. So we had a couple of male colleagues in our group, and it's just meeting on a monthly basis and having a chat about careers, what's working, what's not working, sharing successes. It's just a safe space, which, we know those safe spaces to be honest and open with one another are so useful, actually, in terms of, creating that forum for connection and, identifying where the pain points are and working out how we can solve for them. So I was doing that, then ended up doing some I Am Remarkable facilitator training as well, so running those workshops. Then our gender network development program came around, which it does on an annual basis, and they were looking for coaches. And I said, well, I'll put my hand up for that. And all of this, was very much aligned in the same direction of kind of facilitating, training, coaching, supporting, a bit of mentoring in there. So I absolutely loved it. And I just thought, look, all of this stuff that I'm doing, like this network is doing great things. I want to get more involved in the leadership of it so that I can help drive these programs and get them out to more people. So I then moved on to the leadership team for the Gender Network Development Program and was running that alongside a committee of other people for a few years. At the same time, I took on a role as a chair of our London and South East committee. From there, an opportunity came up to take on a role leading all of the regions and strands on the global leadership team. Started that at the beginning of 23, and then when the summer of 23 came round, and a couple of co-chairs had stepped down, global co-chairs, they were looking for people, and I was like, should I go for this? Like, and you have that moment where you're like, is this am I the right person? And I just thought, you know what, like, throw your hat in the ring, see what happens. And I did look at the rest of the LT, and I looked at the network, and I thought, you know what, there's people here that have been here a lot longer, that have been a lot more active than me. I'm probably not going to get this. This is like highly unlikely, but let's see. And anyway, then Jonah, who was at the time the kind of continuing co-chair, calls me up. She says, you've got the position. We'd like to invite you to be one. I cried, and I don't cry often, but I was like, wow, that was so overwhelmed that they'd chosen me.
Oh gosh,
privilege, and that was 2 years ago, and I cannot believe. So we have our for a 3-year term, which is why Junior's now moved from Rainbow to MCM because he can't get enough, so he's just had to move to another network. He's such a great leader that we weren't ready to let him go. But so 2 years in now, 1 year left to go, and it's crazy to see kind of how much we've done as a network in that time, how much I've grown in that time. And you spoke earlier about kind of skills and leadership skills, and it's definitely outside of my comfort zone, but it's also given me a bit of a platform that I feel like I'm very privileged to have, to make the most in terms of using that as a way to connect with others internally, but also externally, to really drive that change, not just within the bank, but beyond.
Yeah, there's a really interesting thread I can kind of hear sort of being woven through your story, which is around like helping people and the development of people and advancing other people, which, we're going to get into. But let's just talk about the thing around, and the topic this morning is around balance. So let's just talk about, how do you decide what to say no to? Because especially if you're the sort of person like you who likes helping people, likes sort of like doing good in the world, like there's a lot of things that you could do. And I'm guessing even now, and if it's not an email from me or somebody, there's a lot of people asking you, oh, can you do this? Can you get involved in this? How do you decide what to say no to?
I don't know that I'm the best person to ask that to. Find it really hard. I feel like I should go to some kind of meeting and be like, I'm a yes person. But don't tell my business that, because actually in the day job, I do have to kind of push back and challenge, and I've had to bring some of that into what I do in the network as well. I think the hard thing with the network is that there are so many great people that are passionate and they are so driven to make a difference. They're coming up with ideas and you want to say yes to everything. But what point earlier around impact and having the greatest impact, you do have to think really strategically around the things you're going after. So a good example of that is, last year when we were thinking about our strategy as a network, we thought we've got these different pillars of kind of things that we're going after, whether that's career development, whether it's lifestyle and well-being, whether it's allyship and intersectionality. There's so much you can go after, even with all of those. So what do we choose to get behind? How do we prioritize? And that's when we ended up coming up as a network, and we came up with it at LT level, but then we tested it out on our members through our survey. 3 big things that we were really getting ourselves around, and one of those is safety. So women's safety. One is senior development, so development opportunities for senior women, because we felt there was a bit of a gap there, and people talk about a glass cliff. You get breakthrough. You get to the glass cliff and you're supported there. So how could we better support our senior female leaders? And then the third one is menstrual health. Now, obviously, menstrual health is huge, but I have an incredible person leading that, which is Mona, and she's really working with a huge team of volunteers on that subject, a well-being team, to work out what are the things that need to be prioritized there in terms of what we're going after. So 3 big things, and obviously beneath each of those there are kind of specific initiatives and areas and topics to get under, but I think it's really helped us as a network to focus, to be able to better discern what we say yes to, what we say no to. And a no doesn't need to be a no never. Like all the ideas that come to us are brilliant ideas, but you do have to say, is this directly contributing towards what we're going after right now, what we've chosen to go after? And we might find in a year's time, we reassess and we say, are these still the right things to be going after? Or made enough progress here that it's time to pivot and look at something else? Is this actually not the thing that is going to make the greatest impact, and actually it's something else? Because the world is evolving and changing too.
Absolutely. And then there's a couple of things that you said there that I really wanted to hone in on. So you talked about kind of like you've got like a strategy set, or what you're aiming for, and then the other thing you mentioned was impact. And I think there's if you have to have something to test everything that comes onto your potential to-do list again. So as a network, you talk there about does this really align with what our members need, etc. That goes into like strategy and your goals and your objectives, etc. And then the other thing is impact. What will the impact be? And we can sort of apply a similar thing to our personal lives in terms of, does something align with purpose and all of that stuff, right? One of the tools that I like to use, and I suggest this to chairs and committees, because I think it takes some of the emotion out of it. I talk about like a 2x2 matrix that looks like that, where you have like impact in terms of high and low impact, and then doability in terms of, is this thing easy and low cost, or is it hard and expensive? And if you, let people come up with as many ideas as they want to, but then plot it into that grid and have a conversation about it, that it almost means that the no's are really obvious, right? Because, and it's less emotional.
I love a visual. I love a heat map, and I'm a big fan of like Eisenhower matrix, for example. I'm always talking to coachees about the Eisenhower matrix, because people always say, I'm time poor, I don't have enough time for it. I'm like, well, let's divide up your tasks and identify which of these are really things that you should be prioritizing and which of them just are not, so that you delegate, delete, delay, working out that needs to go, and I'm doing that on a regular basis. The thing that I do all the time. I can't
absolutely
my week on a daily basis to look at planning and how I plan out my day or my week. But then even in the moment, something comes into the inbox and I'm like, do I need to look at this now, or can it be waitlisted? Can I look at it later? She's just said it's always great when you get yourself quoted back at you, right? You always say is our why, but it's true. I'm saying that to people, like, keep coming back to your why point, Cheryl. Purpose, like, what is your purpose here? What are you here to do?
Yeah, because even then, you know, when you get other opportunities, so even if it's not network related, so for example, whether it's around you know, day job, or things outside of the day job. So it could be things outside of work. You know, you get new offers. You know, you might get another organisation approach you, and well, you will. You know, if you don't already, you'll get lots more organisations saying, you know, can you come and sit on our board? And how do you assess each of those opportunities? And that is when, you know, a bit like this. You know, what's our why? You know, what is it that lights me up? What am I about? What's my purpose? That is what will stop you ending up with like a portfolio that's just unmanageable.
Yeah, and I think I've got better at that with time. I think the really important thing is having that clarity on the why, the purpose. The what you want to get out of something, and how is that going to serve you? Because you can always be of service in so many different ways, as you say, but there does have to be that reciprocity there. And you have been things, and I can think of examples of things where I've put my hands up to volunteer for things in the past, and actually they've drained me more than they fueled me. What I've got better at doing is collecting things that fuel me. So yes, I have to give a lot, but also they really energize me. And I remember having a conversation with one of my line managers a couple of years back, and I think I was saying to her, oh, I want to get involved in this thing, you know, do you think it's okay? And she said, yes, like, you know, go for it if you want to, but I'm going to give you this health warning, which I'll always give you, Lisa, which is just make sure you're not overstretching yourself and you're not burning yourself. Although I do appreciate that all the things you do tend to give fuel to your fire. So just making sure that you're being, you know, kind to yourself at the end of the day, and that you're not completely overwhelming yourself with all the things that you're saying yes to.
And that is the challenge. It's actually more, and this will get on to our next question, which is about self-care and balance. Sometimes the things actually that the things it's harder to say no to is the things that we want to do, right? There's a brilliant quote, there's a brilliant video actually of Johnny Ive talking about Steve Jobs saying to him about saying no to things, and he's like, you know, Steve Jobs, it's almost like, I'm not telling you to like just say no to the things that are easy to say no to. I mean the things that you really want to do. Like how do you regulate that to make sure, as you sort of said, you know, those words, to make sure that you're not overstretched. So let's talk about, how do you achieve that kind of level of like balance and that level of self-care? What do you do to keep that in check?
So I've had to kind of reframe selfishness, and that actually it's okay to put yourself to the top of the priority list. In fact, it's really important that you do that. The number of conversations that I have with people where they are at the brink of burnout or burnt out, and they haven't been looking after themselves. Like they have been giving to everybody else around them, whether it's work, family, community, and they haven't been making time for themselves. They've started compromising and sacrificing on their own basic needs. Like they're not sleeping properly. They're not finding time for exercise. They're not finding time to do the things they love, like socialize, see their friends, do the things that light them up. They're kind of very caught up in, you know, all the other things that are demanding their time. And yes, look, there will be times that we need to make sacrifices, that we need to prioritize that really important piece of work over your gym session, for example. But that should all the time, right? That should be the exceptional. That's in the Eisenhower matrix under urgent importance, firefighting mode, right? But you shouldn't on a regular basis be made to constantly compromise on your own kind of personal needs. Because otherwise you are going to get to this point where you're just running on fumes, you're completely empty, and then you're to anybody. Nobody wants that, right? And it's so hard to recover from that. So you see people that get to the point of burnout, and then they're having to take time off work. You know, they're not enjoying their time with their families. They're feeling low, and that's a hard point to pick yourself up from. It's not to that point. And you know, something that I do, you know, through my coaching, and we'll talk about kind of my business later, is, you know, a lot of that work is about fast tracking people to that realization, like rather than waiting point where the alarm bells are going off and saying you've got nothing left, you know, the car is down on the road. It's
Yeah.
like, you pay attention to the fuel gauge, or, you know, in my electrics, I have to pay attention to like how many miles to go. But be aware of that, so that then you top yourself up sooner. You can pour back into yourself a little bit sooner, because another thing that I say a lot is you can't pour from an empty cup. It just doesn't happen. And you're not going to quickly refill. This isn't Harry Potter. You've got to do that for yourself. No one else is going to do it for you.
Absolutely. And knowing, you know, it's really important knowing what refills you, what refills your cup, you know, so that you can actually then continue. I love that you said earlier about, you know, when an opportunity came up that your line manager, you know, flagged, you know, are you overstretching? And I think for network leaders, I would say, you know, if you don't have a line manager that naturally will be supportive like that, you could ask them, you know, you could say to your line manager, these are some of the signs of like when I'm really under stress, or when I'm, you know, this new term, quiet cracking, right? As Junior flagged to me, these are some of the signs of that. You know, if you see that, please, you know, check in with me, and all your exec sponsor as well. I would say, you know, I'm really encouraging exec sponsors to be looking out for this as well, and to be saying to their network leads, you know, is everything okay? Is the workload manageable between this and your day job? I kind of wish that more exec sponsors were also almost like looking out for their leads in terms of both performance as a network chair, but also just making sure that that balance between chair and day job is also kind of like working well. So, you know, those are some of the almost like pressure release valves, or the support aids that we can have. But yeah, absolutely knowing what fills your cup, which probably actually leads us really nicely into, not that I've just been waiting to talk about this through the whole conversation, but let's talk about your retreats, because I'm, you know, anybody that knows me really well, like outside of in the real world, like off of LinkedIn, knows I love a retreat. I first went to my first retreat over 10 years ago, and I literally would say it changed my life. So tell me about why the retreats, and, you know, all of that other work that you do.
Yeah, well, yeah, happy to talk about it. It's something that's really evolved over time. So 10 years ago, when I moved in-house and I had more regular hours and had more time to invest in me, I did get that opportunity to pursue some things that I was really passionate about and do some learning outside of the organization. At the time, you know, I was really driven to learn more about fitness, around kind of our bodies and how they work. I was doing a lot of that myself. I was training for marathons. I was working out in the gym. I loved a gym class. And it was making me feel really good. When I was working private practice and I was working horrendous hours and I was really, really stressed, this became like my coping mechanism, my tool that kind of So we talked about finding the things that pour into your cup. It was definitely something that poured into mine. And I thought, you know, I want to share this with other people. That's the kind of way I operate. Like, I learn something, I don't keep it to myself. Everyone needs to know about this now.
Yeah. Like, you become evangelical, right?
Yeah, exactly. A bit of an oversharer, but, you know, hopefully it's helpful to some people, right? It won't be for everyone, but for those that it is, that will reach them. And so I did a fitness instructing qualification, which was a lot of fun. And then I started teaching classes kind of around the edges of work. So early in the morning, in the evenings, sometimes lunchtimes, and on the weekends. That was pre-kids. Obviously, kids then come along and that makes it slightly more complicated. Pandemic came along and no one's teaching in person anymore. But I did start doing online classes. During the pandemic, I did my yoga teacher training as well. That was something I was very much then, for various reasons. These things come to you at the right time, right? So I went and did my 200-hour training, qualified at the end of 2020, which was a great thing to come out. Has been, you know, a really, really tough and challenging one, and then was able to use that to share with other people. So using that not just, you know, in community and by running kind of classes for friends and family, and them together, but also I brought it into work. Like, people were talking about other ways to connect with each other, and also, you know, people wanted to support their mental health and well-being. And I said, well, hey guys, like, you know, I'm a qualified yoga teacher, and this is something that I hadn't really been talking about very much in the workplace before. It's like, we have to keep this separate. You know, people might not take me seriously as a lawyer, but actually then bringing it in enabled me to help support colleagues. It's actually ways I ended up getting involved in the employee-led networks as well, because my colleague Dan, who at the time was one of the co-chairs of the Enable Network, said, "Can you come and do an accessible yoga class for us?"
Amazing.
And meditation for Blue Monday and for a couple of other milestone moments during the year. And so that's how that evolved. But I was trying to and then separately through work, I did a coaching qualification as well. So all of this is pulling in the same direction towards, as you say, Cheryl, my kind of personal purpose, which is really to develop. And I was trying to kind of do a lot of this outside of work on my own, which felt like hard slog, because it's hard doing it on your own, as you well know, when you're running your own business. And last year, got chatting to a friend of mine who was doing something very, very similar. But she works in the medical profession. But we were chatting about our two worlds, and they're different, but they're the same. People are coming with challenges, burnout, long hours, lots of high pressure, high expectations, lots of high achievers that put all this strain on themselves and put themselves last to the bottom of the priority list. So we said, can we create something together that actually might kind of serve the greater good here and give people a little bit more of what they need? And that's when we came up with our first Channel Your Serenity workshop, which is kind of we like to think of it as a full holistic package. So we've brought together kind of everything that I've done in the past in terms of yoga, wellness, all the kind of movement and body work, the somatic, with the practical coaching that we both do, and some of Lauren, who's my partner, her expertise from the medical profession, cell medicine, which she's studying at the moment, and brought all that together into kind of one holistic package. So it's married kind of body and mind together. We'd found in the past that either you would go and find like some therapy or some coaching that was all up in your head, or find a class that was all about just moving your body, and there wasn't much that kind of brought the two together. So we're like, well, that's what we're going to do. And we've both got quite different styles, so there's a little bit of yin and yang there as well, and bringing that all together. And it started as a workshop, and then that's evolved into us kind of running bigger programs, half-day retreats, and now weekends as well. We're experimenting. We're kind of leaning into entrepreneurship and trying different things, and it's a lot of fun. But what we've tried to pull together is a range of different things that can serve people in different ways, depending on how much time they have available to them. So we spoke about how finite people's time is. They struggle to fit stuff in. So we're doing kind of regular monthly Sunday serenities online for everybody that just wants to have a dabble. And that's a combination of breath work, meditation, and then some group coaching and journaling. It's a great way to set yourself up for the month. It's just half an hour on a Sunday evening, and that's completely free over Zoom. Anyone can join. So there's that. But then over the course of the autumn, we're going to be doing monthly in-person workshops at the Mandrake Hotel in London. So they're about 2 hours long. And again, a combination of yoga, meditation, coaching. Then we've got a one-day retreat at Champneys if you've got a full day to play with and you want to get out and immerse yourself for a whole day. And then if you want something even bigger, we've got a weekend at a beautiful farmhouse in Norfolk. So there really is, hopefully in there, something for everyone, depending on what, your time availability is. Half an hour on a Sunday evening, or whether it's a whole weekend to fully immerse yourself. There. So if anyone wants to know more about it, please do DM me and let me know.
For sure. Honestly, I would highly recommend this kind of thing for any network leader that's watching. And Junior sort of said, if you can get him doing breath work, then you can do anything. But even like you said about like that Sunday Zoom, in terms of just doing that breath work and journaling, so these are really small practices that can make a massive difference. I've got a friend at the moment that's going through cancer, and these practices that she has set up in her life, like journaling, like taking a day off of her phones and her devices, is doing wonders in terms of the effectiveness now of her cancer treatment, right? And when I went on my first retreat, and I haven't been since the pandemic, but I can find myself, I feel as I'm yearning for it, like, because it's my favorite place on earth. And it's the only place, the last time I went for 7 days, and I didn't take a single device, no phone, no iPad, no laptop, nothing, just getting away. Like the power of a retreat especially the more immersive you can make it, the better. I can't tell you how much of a reset that can give. And so honestly, if anybody's watching this and is thinking, oh, I'm feeling as though I am sort of heading towards burnout, definitely check out what it is that Lisa's doing, because it all sounds a little bit woo-woo, but as I've heard somebody say, it's all woo-woo until the science then proves that it's true, and then it becomes true woo.
It's just really important to take a step back, right? And that's what retreating is, right? It's taking a step back so that you can zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And there's whether that's of an ERG or an organization, or you're an entrepreneur running your own business, you've got to get out of the weeds sometimes and take that step back, zoom out, look at the bigger picture, see where everything kind of fits together and join the dots. And it's only then that you can really make those strategic decisions, as you say, Cheryl, really kind of properly plan. And you get out of that fight and flight mode, that constant doing mode, into that thinking mode. We were talking earlier about how you've been some time for you to think this week. And that's so in this world where we're constantly in Zoom meetings and responding to emails, we forget how important it is to carve out that time to think, because you can't think properly in between back-to-back Zoom calls. It's just not possible. You've got to carve out that space for you to do it. So I think, hopefully it is hugely helpful to people. And I always say it's kind of becoming a bit of a mantra of mine that leadership starts with self-leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Leadership of the self. Wow. That was deep. That was really deep. That you'll come on a third time to talk about leadership of the self. We're going to wrap up with one final question, which really is, what is the one piece of advice you would give to new chairs on how to find balance? What would you say to new chairs? Well,
put yourself first, right? And I guess what we've just said, leadership starts with self-leadership. So if you're setting up a new ERG, or you're just coming into a role as an ERG chair, remember you've got to pour into yourself first before you can give back to anything else. So set yourself up for success. Make sure you're meeting your needs. Do your planning, do your strategic thinking, keep bringing it back to you so that you can then go out and be the best version of you for everyone else. And to really change, you've got to fuel yourself. Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. And the one thing that I would add on to that as well is for any newbie chairs out there that are maybe watching, this is one of the reasons that I'm really passionate about kind of giving a platform to, the likes of, yourself, Lisa, and people like Junior and Hardo, etc., because there's so much wisdom in individuals that have kind of gone through it and done it before around just these things, around how you find the balance. And I would say, if you're not connected with these people, follow them, connect with them, reach out to them. If you're, kind of like struggling, definitely get involved in the Channel Your Serenity pieces, because there's so much there. I always talk about, I talk to people about like planning in quarters, so breaking your year down. And I would sort of say, at least once a quarter, do some kind of reset thing, whether it's, you're attending one of Lisa's workshops or whatever it is, just have some kind of like headspace reset and assess where you are to make sure that you're not quietly cracking, as the term is. And that's it, Lisa. Where can people find out more about Channel Your Serenity? Have you got a website up and stuff like that? Yeah, we're working on the website, but for now we do a LinkedIn page, so you can go check us out on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram, same handle, Channel Your Serenity, or you can just DM me. I'd be happy to share more information. Amazing. And that's Sunday Zoom. That sounds great. And Sundays as well, which often for some people it's a day where they start to get that creeping dread, right, towards the end of the Sunday, because they know that they're starting another week. So starting a week rather than being in a place of dread, starting it being a little bit more serene, because maybe you've done a little bit of breath work and some journaling, It's finding community. That's part of the community of people that you surround yourself with. And I think, I love what you said about leaning on other people, Cheryl. And I think do that with your networks too, right? I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for my other network co-chairs. So, I very much share the load with Richard and Alice, who also co-chair the Gender Network, and other ELN leaders like Junior in my organisation too. It's all about finding that community of people around you that are going to lift you and support you and pick you back up when you're feeling a bit low. Absolutely. Amazing. Lisa, we're going to end it there, but thank you again so much for
for joining me on the chat, and to Junior and Hardev in the comments, and anybody else that was either watching live, or if you're watching this on the replay, thank you so much for taking like 54 minutes out of your day. Junior, I hope your packing is all done, and I hope you're going to be having an amazing holiday. I wonder if you're going to be completely offline. You know, we will see. But thank you everybody for joining us. Lisa, thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you're in the UK, have an amazing bank holiday weekend. Fingers crossed for the weather, especially for Carnival, for anybody that's going out to shake a leg at Carnival. All right, take care, guys. Go with grace.